Good evening. Welcome, everyone. My name is Rob Huth. I serve as a township attorney here in Shelby. My role tonight will be to help moderate this meeting that the township has agreed to host so that you can ask questions of consumers regarding their plans, the rumors you've heard, and what to expect going forward. Tonight, here from Shelby Township, kind of in the brain trust corner there, our supervisor, Rick Stathakis, our clerk, Stan Grote, our DPW director, Dave Miller, and Brad from Media Relations. That's it. Important for you to know a couple things. Consumers has indicated to us that this will be the first of 2 meetings. So tonight is an opportunity, maybe even if you don't have a question, to state what your concern is. Because I think we're going to learn tonight that a lot of things have not yet been put in place. So it's a good opportunity for you to tell them what you're concerned with. Secondly, the format for this is going to be run the same way as our township meetings are. Hopefully you have lots going on in your life and you don't know how our township meetings are run, but in case you do, and you do watch them on TV, you would know that we allow folks to come up here, ask their question, or plural, questions. The folks up there who have the ability to answer them are going to write down your questions. After you sit down, your question will be answered. We've adopted those by way of our rules of decorum to have an orderly meeting, by our township board policies to keep order in our meetings, and that's the way we would expect to go forward tonight. So everybody that wants to speak will have a chance to speak. Ask your questions. These folks here will answer them, and we'll go forward exchanging information the best way that we can, and expect that we'll have another meeting to talk further about how things are progressing. So from that point, I'm going to turn it over to Lynn Wilson from Consumers Energy, and she's going to introduce her team. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you for spending some time with us here this evening. My name is Lynn Wilson, and I work in our Community Affairs Department. I manage stakeholder engagement for our major projects, and I'll be helping to coordinate our team tonight as we visit with you. And I'm going to have Stephen start with his introduction. We'll go this way and then this way.
Good evening. I'm Stephen Shano. I am the real estate project manager for the Stoneman project.
I am Jason Bullard. I'm in distribution engineering, and I'm managing the design of the project.
My name is Kristen Van Riesma, and I am a 26-year veteran of Consumers Energy, and I am the project manager.
Hi, I'm Jeff George. I'm the distribution pipeline engineering lead for the east side of the state. So we're kind of managing the design of the project.
Okay. What we'd like to do tonight, before we start taking your questions, is we'd like to go through a very brief slideshow presentation, give you a project overview and some basic information that may help to answer some of the questions that you have, or maybe it will prompt some other questions and comments from you. And then the rest of the evening is about hearing from you. We are really happy to be here tonight, but we also want to let you know that as you just heard in the introduction, there are a lot of project details that we don't know yet tonight. So we'll start with what we do know, and we will move through, answer what we can, and be very frank with you about if you're just asking us something that needs to come back to us, and we'll talk to you about the project schedule, and we want you to walk out if you're feeling a lot more comfortable with the project. So with that, we're going to go ahead and start with our first slide. Our booth is going to change the slides for us, and Kristen's going to talk to you a little bit about, this is, we love to give everything an acronym. So this is the South Oakland Macomb Network project overall. So Kristen, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. Good evening.
We'll get the microphones all set.
There you go.
Yep.
Okay. Yes, we do like acronyms, and this project is really about modernization and the fact that our aging infrastructure needs to be replaced. And so it's really important that we look at our system and we're constantly evaluating it to ensure that we have a good, robust network of pipelines for servicing you, our customers. This is a series of 15 projects, and what we did is we optimized our design. We looked at our system and we realized we needed to replace 29 miles of pipeline. And we thought, well, where it's located is not in a good location. Let's look at other options. And so we looked at this design that we have in front of you today, and it's only 17 miles. And that will also include city gates that we will replace, which basically that's where the gas is odorized. And those are scattered throughout our system. We have 4 phases. It's approximately $200 million project, and it is expected to run through 2022. Although today, what you're really interested in is the work that we are looking at constructing in 2019.
And let's take just a minute. Kristen just talked through the overall South Oakland Macomb Network project, and the project goes well beyond Shelby Township.
Mm-hmm.
So the information that she was just giving you about the new miles of pipeline and the city gates are for the project overall. And you can see on kind of the right side of the screen, the Macomb County, if I had a pointer here, piece. And as we move to the next screen, we're going to zoom in to the piece in your community that we're looking at for a 2019 project. Okay, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. So this is Macomb Corridor is part of the larger South Oakland Macomb Network project, and we're installing 7.5 miles of 24-inch natural gas pipelines. It is $58 million to be constructed in 2019. And basically, we like to work in nice weather. So we would start in the spring and complete before the winter season. And your experience associated with your service, you would not have any interruptions associated with your homes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff?
Yeah.
We're going to advance, and Jeff is going to talk a little bit more about the needs and benefits of this project.
Well, good evening. So one of the reasons why we're constructing the pipeline is we need to replace the pipeline because of the, throughout our service territory, we have pipelines that are from the 1940s. So constructing this pipeline where we're at, right now we're improving the technologies that have been going on with constructing pipelines for years. And now it's just like the cell phones, compared to phones yesterday, the dial-up landlines. So we're continually working on new technologies and developing new technologies for installing pipelines, and they're becoming safer and safer every day. The growing demand of the natural gas in Macomb County is increased. You'll see just from around you see all the buildings that are going up. We need to develop that capacity to serve these customers. And the more it grows, obviously, the more robust the system needs to be. So from some of the customer benefits, safety and reliability, for new infrastructure allows you to move more natural gas quickly and safely and efficiently. So we want to make sure we have the pipelines in place that are going to move it from point A to point B in the most effective and efficient way. Can you meet the growing needs of the customer demand and even peak days? We got to be able to do that. We have to be able to meet those demands for those customers. Some of these cold mornings that we have when pipelines are out, you know, we want to make sure that every customer and all businesses are able to operate and have that commodity to their business or home. The value, part of a large strategic commitment to natural gas. So this isn't the only project in the state. We have multiple projects going on around the state. So we're investing a lot of strategic dollars towards replacing these pipelines on the distribution side and on our transmission side. So it'll benefit the state. And the economic impact. So part of this project, you know, we have a lot of people involved. We have external contractors. We have engineering firms. We have a lot of individuals associated with this project, and It could bring in up to 450 jobs, once the project gets going.
Thank you. And then one of the questions that I think you'll have, Stephen is going to address on the next slide, questions about why are we looking at the ITC corridor?
So, as you can imagine, the pipelines, as Jeff had alluded to, that we're servicing these communities, they were constructed back in the 1940s. The population and the urban growth and expansion of Oakland and Macomb counties has increased, and so we have to not only service those communities for increased demand, but we also have to look at locations that will minimize the community impact. Where can we actually locate this pipeline? So when we found the ITC corridor, the ITC corridor became an ideal location since it's an existing utility corridor. It's preferred to designing a route through a densely populated neighborhood or urban area. Now, as far as the details with respect to that design, we are still working out those details with ITC. It's their corridor. And so there's a lot of intricate aspects to the design and to the impact and restoration and land impacts in that regard with their existing facilities and with other utility companies' facilities there as well. So as far as the construction is concerned, right now we're actually looking at and planning on what is going to be our plan is approaching the restoration, the construction, with any potential encroachments and looking at those impacts as well.
Thank you. And then Jason is going to address another topic that I know the supervisors had several questions about, and that is pipeline safety.
Yes, so every aspect of this project, from the design to construction to after it's in service, safety is going to be #1 priority on our list. And there is the Emission Gas Safety Code, federal code, and that we must meet. And then once we do start construction, we're going to make sure we have a good construction team in place, inspection team in place, and we're going to use all the latest tools that is out there to inspect the pipe before we put it in service as well. And then once it is in service, there is a protocol that we have to meet to do regular leak surveys. We do protect the pipe. It is steel, so we protect it cathodically, and then we have to maintain those records of inspection as well.
So we have our project engineers, our real estate team, our pipeline project management team. We are your team, so as you ask questions tonight, depending on the nature of your question, we'll refer that to the right person. If you want to go ahead and advance, we just have another couple short wrap-up slides here. We do work on pipeline projects every year, and we understand that they do have an impact during construction, and we work hard to coordinate with you, to communicate with you, and to minimize the inconvenience to you as we go through the construction season. We knew that we were pleased to answer the call with the request to come and have an informational meeting. It was clear to the supervisor that there were a lot of concerns in the community. There was a lot of knowledge about the project and a lot of questions out there, and we're happy to be here tonight as the beginning of our conversation. As I mentioned initially, we were concerned about coming only because we know you have questions that we can't answer tonight, and we don't want that to frustrate you. We will be back. We will be having another informational meeting. You will know about it. It will be held in advance of the project work starting. At this point, we expect that to be after the first of the year that we would have the meeting, and then later in January or into February before any of the project work starts. But we will answer what we can tonight, and we're happy to take your comments and understand your questions and your concerns. If we can't address them tonight, they'll be valuable to us as we get prepared moving forward. We do have for you tonight, as you leave, and I'm not sending you out the door now, but outside, Kim has, just outside the door, she will have a postcard for you. One of the things on the postcard is a phone number, and one of the things on the postcard is an email address. And those are available to you if you have questions that come up after this evening. I'm going to make a plug for the email itself because it will go directly to our project team, where the phone number goes, I think, through our real estate office, so it may have an extra trip. But either one is available to you. We want to keep that communication network open. And again, we do have those postcards, so make sure to pick those up. The other offer that we have for you tonight is that if you have questions about your individual property, if your property is directly adjacent to the ITC corridor, Stephen and Kim are here tonight, and they have a sign-up sheet. They do intend to make direct contact with every landowner along the corridor, but if you want to make sure to have an appointment and maybe a more extended conversation with them, do sign up tonight. Let them know, who you are. Get your best contact information to them so that they can come out and meet with you one-on-one or with your family and talk about your specific questions. So we have those two offers tonight. And with that, we're going to wrap up our presentation, and we'll be here listening to your questions and answering what we can and taking good notes. So back to you.
Lynn, what's the easiest way for folks to come up here? Do you want me to call on them and have them come up, or is it something you would prefer to do?
Why don't you do that?
Okay.
That would be great. I mean, you can go left to right or right to left or back to front or whatever works for you.
What you do is, if you have a question, raise your hand and we'll call it. Yes, ma'am. So what you do is come up here and go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, thank you for coming. I appreciate the opportunity to ask questions and be heard. My first question would be, is this project a done deal? Is it going through regardless of our sentiments? That's my first question. My second question, you mentioned you'd be reaching out to the property owners which abut the ITC power line. What more do we need to know? What are you going to be telling us about this project and how it adversely impacts us? The third question is, I'm sure you've done projects like this before, so how does this affect the value of our home and the saleability of our home if we decide not to live on this pipeline? The other question would be, why do you have to clear cut the trees? That's part of the reason why a lot of us who had joined the power line purchased where we purchased. The next question would be, has a class action lawsuit ever thwarted your project? And I think that wraps up my questions for now. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Would you want to respond to those questions then?
Yeah, I think what we'll do is, I'm understanding that our format, our protocol is to listen through your comments, wait till you're seated, and then we'll take a chance here to evaluate who might respond to these different questions. I think there are two of them One generally about the ITC power line and what else do you need to know? That is one of those questions that, although, again, we don't want to be frustrating on this topic, but when we come back, we will have full drawing sets, graphics, a full explanation of what this project is. And we knew that we could not bring that information tonight and that that would not be, the best response. Things about tree clearing, pipeline location, things like that are just something that we are gonna have to defer for at least, the earliest we would be back, I think, is probably early December. And again, we're really expecting that to be the beginning of January. As far as, I don't know if we have anyone on the team who wants to address the question of whether this is a done deal. And if anybody's ever been involved in a
Well, no,
class.
I've
Well, we're looking to kind of establish roles. And also the class action lawsuit. I think those two maybe go together. Does anybody?
well, he
or
would have
do
the,
you-
I could probably address the done deal as, just simply as I had indicated earlier, we're still working through the process with the design and with the agreement with ITC. It's their corridor. They have facilities there. There are third parties that have facilities there. So we have to present to ITC what our proposed construction plan is, restoration plan, the facility itself, all the design details of that. None of that has been finalized yet, so that we can't really get into any specifics because we don't necessarily know what those specifics ultimately will be. Now, to add on to what Lynn had was discussing earlier about the specifics to land values, the tree clearing, and things of that nature. I just want to express that Consumers Real Estate Department, we have experienced professionals that will come and meet with you individually as we work through this process and we understand more of the details on the project itself. We will come to you. You can contact us. We have a sign-up sheet outside where you can provide your name and your contact information, and we will come and address any and all of those concerns with you. And the more information we have, we will be more than happy to share that information with you.
Are you saying you don't have any of this information?
You know what, I just want to say one thing. We just have to keep our format, so rather than questions coming from the audience, you sound like you have a question. Would you mind coming up here?
I asked questions, I didn't get any answers, I just got rhetoric.
Well, right, but that,
Be realistic.
okay, hold on. That's not the format where we're going to have, if you're unsatisfied with the answer, that we have to address it from the podium and not from the audience. That's the arrangement we made with consumers, and that's the way we run our meetings here. Although we're here as a host, but we promised to consumers that we'd follow a format. Sir, would you like to come up?
Again, thanks for coming. I'm sure it wasn't your favorite job to do today. That said, one of the slides that we saw indicated that you would be clearing trees, you would be clearing sheds. Is that just a typical thing that Consumers does, or is it specific to this project? And secondly, if there are drawings to share, even on a preliminary basis, the people that will live within feet of a high-pressure gas line certainly have the right, and you folks have the ethical duty to tell us about it and have us look at it. It's not your homes, right? It's ours. And we'd like to see that. And so prior to ITC's finalization or anything, you really owe it to the community. It may be ITC's power line, it's our homes. So I realize you can't address this tonight. We expect, as homeowners and people who pay property taxes in this community that you will be working in, that you do address this prior to any approval. And I don't care who takes the lead, guys. Just don't care. We want the answers. That's why we're all here, and we will be back. Okay? Thanks.
So that was that more of a comment, or is there a question that,
Is there anything raised there that you you want to address from the real estate standpoint?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah,
address that.
that was the one I was looking for you to,
Yeah.
you
Sure.
wanted
And-
to address that one?
So, again, let me reiterate that the real estate team, Consumers Real Estate Team, is committed to providing you with the clearest information that we have once we have it. Right now, the reason why we are addressing and brought up into the slide is that we are looking at the corridor itself, and there are trees within ITC's corridor that we may have to clear. There are encroachments that contiguous landowners have, gardens, sheds that are on ITC's property that ultimately we may have to remove in order to install the pipeline. It's just part of the planning process. But until we know exactly what that design's going to be, we're not in a position to be able to say, yes, we're going to be removing this, and then ultimately the design may change or have to change, and then where are we at? We've provided you with misinformation. So we're again committed to providing you with the clearest, direct, correct information.
Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
If I can just ask a quick question, so I don't have to climb over anybody. Have they given real consideration to going down the center of it, or is it just decided that this is the path of least resistance for consumers' energy?
Okay, this will be the last time we do it that way, but the question from the resident, oh, let's do that.
Please, thank you. She understands my question.
Okay.
I just didn't want to climb over everybody.
Hi, I'm Deborah's personal proxy. Why are you going so close to our homes? Why the edge of the ITC line that abuts our backyards, and why not the center? And where is the safety zone? If something happens, like we've read the articles in the paper about the Lake Orion incident a year or so ago, what's going to happen to us? How far away is this safe zone? And where are maps like this posted right now so we can see? And if you plan on starting this work in February, that's a couple months away. We have decisions we have to make about our homes, and we have no information. You're giving us no information now, not even general information. You've done projects like this before. You can tell us if this happens, we cut the trees. If this doesn't happen, we don't. You can give us general information, yet you're not. And you're planning on starting in possibly a couple months? That's not fair.
I think we can address some of your safety comments, and I will say again, and said in the introduction, when Rick called and we were talking about the concerns, we recognize the concerns. We're very real, and we want to have a dialogue with you, but we talked at that time about how this meeting could be very frustrating because we aren't going to have those answers today. And, we can apologize, we can repeat it, and we can tell you that we will be back with that information. And we also tried to put that in the public meeting announcement. So I'm truly sorry we can't give you everything tonight. We just don't have it. So with that, Jason, can I look to you for comments on safety and maybe the Lake Orion?
Well, the Lake Orion, I'm sorry, the failure was an isolated incident. The rupture was totally contained within 90 minutes, and there was no injury and very little property damage to it. Consumers Energy had never experienced an incident like this caused before, and took actions to help ensure it doesn't happen again. Like I mentioned before in the slide, we do have to regularly inspect our lines per the gas safety code. We take steps in protecting the pipe, making sure that it's regularly surveyed. And so I can't, like Lynn mentioned, I can't exactly speak to the design in great detail yet. However, we are working with IT to try and make sure that we're finding a location that is not only safe for, the public, it's safe for the construction crew constructing it, and it's in the most, or the best place possible, so.
Okay.
Three of my
Oh,
questions weren't even addressed or
okay.
answered.
All right. What we're going to do is,
Let's stick to this format like you said.
we are going to stick to the format, but there's a lot of people with hands in the air, and I think it's fair that other people get a chance to come up here. So that's up.
Answer the questions I asked first, and then we move on.
Well,
Yeah.
okay.
Stay up there, stand up there and stay up there.
No, that's not, hold it. That's not the format that we've agreed to have these folks here.
Not holding up your end of it. 3 questions were asked and not answered. Why not down the center? Is there a public map posted about the safety zone? And I forgot the other one now. You guys were writing it down.
Okay. So one of the things to summarize is that we've been, the township's been through the issue of the ITC corridor with respect to ITC's work that's been done there. And what we've learned over the years with respect to the residents that are bordering it, the more activity that can occur closer to the center, away from the houses, of course, satisfies the folks that live on there. So I'm a resident, so I'll use my time for my question. What efforts can you make to move the pipeline towards the center and the tree cutting activities towards the center as opposed to the outside?
And the map and the safety zone. What is the margin?
Ma'am, I'm going to tell you, we're not going to have you blurting out questions from the audience. I'm just telling you, it's not going to work. We're going to ask you to leave if you continue to do it. That's the format. Okay?
Do you want me to, I can just take a moment here, so.
Well, and I think too, if it would help for us to repeat back a question and say, for instance, that will be answered at our next meeting. If it would help to say that and that it will be answered, we can certainly do that format so that you don't feel like we're not addressing it. But by telling you that we cannot answer design questions tonight, but that we are noting them. I mean, we know you want answers to these. We just don't have answers. And we debated whether we should even come tonight and have any kind of conversation because we did not want to get in a position where we are arguing with you about things that we don't know yet. So we'll do our best. We are writing everything down. We know the kinds of things that you want to know. And if we can't answer them tonight, we will have that information. So, and I think, Kristen, you'd like to?
Well, I think the concern associated with why couldn't we go down and construct in the middle of the corridor. It is a critical ITC, that is their property. And as far as their need to manage their property and their facilities, certainly we need to ensure that they have the access to be able to manage their own facilities. And so we are in discussions with them on the location. There is also a DTE distribution power line that's in there as well. And we need to actually consider the safety of our employees and our construction workers when we are constructing that, because if you're managing the pipeline construction and the booms, you need to be careful about those power lines as well. So we have to be very careful about construction safety and how we have requirements that require us to stay a certain distance away from those power lines. So those are all part of the design considerations. And as Lynn said, as far as the specifics associated with the design and asking for a map, we would really like to do that. Our engineers love to talk about design. And so for doing an open house forum, we think will be much more effective. And we'll be able to address your very specific questions and your specific location of your home, and also the vegetation plan as well. Being very specific, we really would like to have those conversations with you.
Okay. Yes, sir. You've had your hand up.
Hey, thanks a lot for coming tonight. I'm Gordy Couture. I'm a president of our Tuscany Grove Homeowners Association, representing 58 homeowners that border the ITC corridor. A bunch of questions, mostly for Kristen and probably Stephen. So, and what I will do, if you can't answer them, I'm going to email these questions to you, and you can have them a good answer for your next time. But first of all, is your plan, your preliminary plan, to put this on the east side or the west side of the power lines, the power line towers? Next question is, you know, like everybody else says, why remove the trees? If you could go between the tree line and the power lines, you know, that would be preferable, I think. And so your old pipes were put in 1940, so how long do the new pipes last? And then the city gates, are these like a building, or is it like pipes above the ground, like I've seen some of these little pipe things with valves, big pipe things and valves? I don't know what those look like, and is there a safety zone around those? I saw one catch on fire, and you could feel the heat a mile away. And then leak detection. Do you do electronic leak detection or periodic inspections? Do you have automatic controls to shut off in case of a major leak, like a pressure drop or anything like that? And then the last question that maybe we're all concerned about, since you had value up on your screen there, are you going to lower our gas rates?
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciated your initial comments, and several of these I think we can answer tonight, so that's good. And we'll also appreciate having those emailed to us. Do you want to look at the city gates and how long pipes last? Like, what is a city gate?
Oh, I can do the city gate one as far as what are those facilities. So basically, that is, we have different kinds of pipelines, and so that city gate is really taking the gas and going through, it's going through a heater to actually, and then it's regulating the pressure to a lower pressure. And then it also separates out any liquids that we might incur in our gas through a separator. And then it is odorized, so natural gas does not have a smell to it. We have to actually add that to our gas, and we're Mercaptan, in order for you to know that you actually have natural gas. If there is some sort of a leak, you smell that, you know, that rotten sulfur smell. So that gets added into the gas before it goes to your homes. So that's basically the facilities for a city gate that we would be building.
How about how long the pipes last? You want to take?
Well, I could probably
Oh,
answer it.
great.
So they pipelines can last a really long time. I mean, for ones that we're seeing from the 1940s now, but now the pipelines that we're installing now, they're like a half-inch thick of steel, and it's of a good steel. It's a good material that we're putting in the ground. And it's not only the steel pipes we're putting in the ground; it's the polyethylene pipes that we're putting in the ground. When we're talking about those city gates that are being put in, they're basically delivering that gas to the distribution system that's feeding, you know, all your homes. So they're an important part of this project. But as far as whether the gas line and where it's located, and whether it's the east or the west, that's still part of the decision process that we're going through in the design. We haven't finalized anything yet, so we're really just kind of look at everything, see what's underground. When you come up to the roadways, we need to see what utilities are there, and there are a lot in Macomb County. There are a lot of underground utilities that we have to consider. When you're constructing something of that size, you know, you have to look at all that. It's not point where you can easily just adjust it to get under something. You really have to look at your topography and figure out, well, how far back do I need to go to put this line in, or how deep do I need to go to miss this facility to be away from another facility that's another 100 feet away. So there's a lot of things that we have to look at in that design process, and we'll have that for you definitely at the next meeting. I think the safety zones, the safety zones, I can tell you because you brought up the leak survey, and we discussed that. But we have actually, depending upon the pipeline, we have actually, whether we do it semi-annually, or we do it quarterly, or we do it yearly or on an annual basis. So we survey those pipelines continuously. You may not see that, but we have people going out every day, every night, and they're out there surveying these pipelines, and they're on a strict regiment of the areas that we need to be in, and when we're surveying these lines. You know, most of us are at work during that time when that's actually happening. And any leaks or anything is detected, or we immediately put that into our system and address it. And we follow, like I said, we follow all those safety codes, the federal and the local regulated ones, the Michigan ones, and the MPSC comes out and audits that stuff. So from a safety standpoint, we're really confident in the pipelines that we install and the methods that we put in place to keep safe for the future.
Yes, sir.
This meeting is a little bit different than your normal meetings. I used to watch them, and used to laugh a lot, okay? But the thing is that this meeting is more about talking about what the people see and what the people see and what the people need for them to take a look at, okay? And I think that's what I have. I have something here written up, Mr. Huth, that I'd like to give to you and Mr. Stathakis. Okay, if you could give him a copy too. And I've already given Chris a copy.
Thanks. Thank you. You can even email it if you want. To our, yeah.
But you guys have said something here, and you got to put up with a lean guy today, okay? Because that's what I've done for the last 20 years. So the words of safety and all this kind of stuff, it's beautiful words, but you have to do it, okay? But you talk about modernization, okay? If you want to do modernization, you have a bunch of subdivisions here. Get a team member, they all have presidents. Get a team member from each subdivision and work with you so that when you come up with a decision, you have to do all your work, the engineering and so forth. But you have to also make sure that the people are happy. We have to live here, okay? So please, think about getting a team together to work with you guys. Not come back with a decision and say, well, this is the way it is, guys. No. You have to do all your homework, I understand that. But now I'd like to go through this presentation with you, okay? And this basically tells the story of what we're going through. First of all, we heard about this through the grapevine. A guy walks out in the ITC area and tells the president of our area that, oh, we're going to put this pipeline in. It's pretty sad. But as I'm going to say, well, let's read through this thing here. Opening statement is, we the residents are disappointed in our Shelby Township board team, our consumers energy team, and it's a shame, ITC, they're not here today, them too. To initiate a project of this magnitude through our township without residents being notified or being able to voice an opinion or frustration. We have to be told by city officials that they knew very little about this plan. When I made a phone call, they knew very little of this plan. But we have also been told by outside concerns that this project has been discussed for 2 years. We've reached out to state agencies and also our new senator, Peter Lucido, requesting some help. But unfortunately, we have been told by the agency MCOPW they have no jurisdiction here in Shelby Township. The DEQ hasn't been contacted by Consumer Energies. You guys got to apply for things to get things done, which take time, okay? They have not been contacted. Mr. Lucido made it clear to me he has no jurisdiction in this process. It's a city thing, okay? Straightforward, they said, the supervisor and the attorney would be who we need to be in contact with and work through this issue. The beginning of this process has been a travesty and shows no respect for the homeowners. In multiple subs in Shelby Township, between 23 and 26 Mile, and if I got that wrong, I'm sorry. Approximately 600 homes are affected. Sorry, I'm getting a little dry.
We didn't bring any water.
The thing is there an alternate route plan that can be engaged by a site engineer that would not disrupt the wetlands, wetland plants, and wildlife like bats, ducks, deers, groundwater and runoff that are in the surrounding northern subdivisions, removal of all the beautiful trees in the easement? Look at our sign here. And then there we had tree. We said Shelby Township, the city of trees. And you want to cut them down. Not right. Lastly, the 24-inch high-pressure gas line installed is going to be about 50 to 60 feet from our homes in my subdivision. That's close. You have that whole field. I don't want to go down the center. I know you can't do that, but you sure could go out a little bit further. People try to chop down trees because they want to get them out of the way, because we know everybody does not like trees when it comes to electrical and other things, all right? But these trees do not disturb anything. The question is for the supervisor and the attorney, what are you guys going to do about this? What are you going to be in effect of this? And could be a dangerous proposal. You had a project on 25 Mile where you had an oil, I believe it was oil you were taking out. And I saw you guys go into bat, but I also know that some people lived in that area. That's why it got done. Possible losses are, 1, trespass and nuisance. You chop down those trees and everything, or mess with the wetlands or anything, you're opening it up to everything. Added noise from the M53 freeway. Take the trees out, you're going to get more noise. 4-wheelers running through there. They tell me to call the police. They don't catch them. They can't. All it's done is negative stuff, okay? We have summer cooling cost, because if you take my trees away, that sun's going to be boiling all the time on my homes. Winter cost. You have the trees eliminated, you have the whole field, everything blowing through it. Loss of greenery, birds, wildlife in our backyards. That's why we moved there. We wanted these trees. We wanted things so we could have birds. We have all types of birds. The bats, they could go away. In summary, I apologize if everybody doesn't agree, but I'll speak for what I think the citizens really feel like. Are asking for Consumer Energy's, ITC, and our own Shelby Township supervisor and attorney to mutually agree to modify and improve the process and bring a team from our subdivisions included in this to locate the high-pressure glass line installation. We know we need new things. That's understandable. But let's do it the right way. Let's just not do it the easy way. And oh, by the way, if you got to chop all them trees down that you're talking about doing, you know what the total cost is? The total cost of doing that? Where if you went in the strip, you're just going to have to cut through the ground and go through it, as long as you know what's underneath. And what you mentioned earlier, yes, you have to get the proper people out there to label where all of the other stuff is, okay? Get the neighbors and the customers within a plan that meets both party's satisfaction. This is a hard thing because I know a lot of people in here, and we really care about our neighborhood, and we really like Shelby, but you guys have done something here that you've attempted to hurt people of not informing them of what was really going on. And this meeting today means nothing. I used to be in facilities, and we used to have these meetings, and I know the first meeting is nothing. I understand that. But get a team of our people together. Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate your collection of comments and your tone. And we made some good notes here. There are a couple things that are on the list here that we may be able to address. I don't know if we feel like we can add anything new. There was a comment made about environmental resources.
Sure, from an environmental perspective, I know that there was some concerns about wetlands, et cetera. And we do have a very good environmental group that is looking at all of those concerns that you mentioned. And it really is consumers' values to ensure that we leave it better than we found it. That's really important to us. And, you know, the voices that we hear today, I mean, it's you know, your emotion, I can completely appreciate where you're coming from. And I know that the team that we have in place right now, they know what needs to be completed, permits that need to be pulled, and also restoring all of those areas back exactly the way before we were ever there, and actually leaving it better. So I can really appreciate that comment, and I know we have a very good team that will address any of those concerns, in particular in the meetings that we will have subsequent to this.
I'm happy to hear that, but we don't want them areas disturbed. If you see the area between 24 and 25, and I'm sure there might be other areas that I'm just not familiar with, but I'll talk about the one we have. There's a lady that redid the pond that was there, and it's beautiful. And all the stuff around it, all the wetland and all the animals that we get around there, it's amazing. We don't want that disturbed. You guys are talking about bringing big equipment in. I mean, you've talked to two of our neighbors. We're close. We talk. We know. We understand. You know, maybe that's what you need to do, is make sure you talk to your people, that they don't tell people stuff like they did. Okay? But the thing is, Jesus, take care of what we have, the beautification. And the thing I'm going to throw out, the worst of the whole thing is, and thank you for this water. I keep seeing this tree, Mr. Stathakis, Mr. Huth. I've heard you guys talk about this stuff forever, for the last 8 years or so. This is big. This is big. Well, doggone it. Make sure everybody lives by this, no matter who it is. I don't care who ITC is. I don't care who consumers are. I don't care none of that. Let's live to our city standards. I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Altowski, very well spoken. Very well spoken. You got one by me, though. We're going to stick to the format here, and I have your notes and I have your contact information. Appreciate it. And this gentleman's next right here.
We have,
Oh, I apologize. You had some comments to make?
Stephen
Yeah,
has,
I just had one more comment too, regarding the environmental impact. I recently was involved in another project that consumers had, Saginaw Trail Pipeline, and essentially consumers is committed to leaving it better than the way we found it. And part of this project that we had this past summer, we went through the Shiawassee National Wildlife Refuge. And I remember being part of one of the project teams where the construction managers came in and they were telling us where they would stop their large equipment and stop the equipment, get out of the equipment, and rescue turtles in our construction path. And they would move them off of our construction area. So they're committed to that environmental impact, you know, making sure that we leave it better than the way we found it.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming out tonight. Couple questions I have. You haven't done an environmental impact study yet, have you? One. Even though you say you're going to, but you can't start work until you do that, right? First question. Second question is, being an explosives expert, what is the pressure of the pipeline? And I bet you $1 million that I know more about explosives than anybody in your company. So let's go that. 3, there are endangered and threatened bats in that wetlands. And you're gonna cut down trees when the bats aren't there, all right? So we have the northern long-eared bat, we have the Indiana bat. Next one is, what's the size of the pipeline? You didn't allude to it that you're replacing. Question after that, why can't you use the existing pipeline network that you have and those easements that you have and replace the pipeline along that same area? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those questions. Let's start with the questions about the environmental impact study and the permitting for environmental requirements. I'm looking up and down to see.
Go ahead.
No,
What was it
I-
again? No, what was the question again? I'm sorry, I was writing down.
Can you speak to how we will do, or have we already done, an environmental impact assessment or an environmental survey? And how that fits into the overall project timeline, and maybe tie that to the environmental permitting?
Yeah, I think because you don't have the plan all set up yet, you gotta make sure that you have everything laid out exactly. We have it kinda laid out here, but we need to make sure where we're going and what we're doing, and then we can have that environmental impact study, and we'll go through it. And we always have to get all the permitting requirements, we have to follow all those federal and state rules and regulations. And so it is part of the process once we identify, you know, where exactly we're gonna be going in that area. So we are concerned. As a matter of fact, you know, right down the street, I mean, down at Haverhill, I was in Macomb Township, raised my kids there. Understood. They did come down and they cut down the trees for some reason. I never understood it, but I think it might have been disease or something. But we do understand how you feel, and we are concerned with how we leave it. When we say we're gonna leave something better and we found it, we mean it. We're gonna do it. And, you know, my kids, you know, I mean, we don't live here now, but we did, and they were raised in this area. And, you know, I care about this area. The individuals that are working on the project also come from this area in Macomb. So, we do care, and everything that you bring up, you know, we do wanna address, and we are writing it all down. And, you know, the next meeting, you know, we wanna provide more details when we can get them. And then as time goes on, we definitely will do that.
Okay, thank you. And then there's a question about what is the pressure of the pipeline in
So-
relation to an explosive expert?
Well, I don't know about the explosive expert, but the pipeline is, MAOP is what we call it, maximum allowable operating pressure of 400 initially. So it's not gonna be 400 pounds.
Talk to us, I don't know.
400 pounds.
Four-
But it's not gonna be 400 pounds. It's gonna operate lower than that. The pipes needs to be tested. We're actually gonna test it even higher than that, because we wanna make sure that it's tested to the transmission specifications, as required by the federal code, so.
Okay. And then there's a question about the location of the existing pipeline network and why we're not using those easements. Stephen, do you want to talk to that, or
Well,
Kristen?
Well, I think from a design perspective, looking at where this pipe is, this is a 24-inch pipeline that we're talking about, the 7.5 miles for next year. and looking at the design of the system itself, and also looking at where we can put a 24-inch pipeline in, and to minimize the impacts to the community. That was very much considered when we located in this corridor in the first place. Otherwise, we would be going down Shana Road, which would be very detrimental to the community, and trying to go down basically the side of the road there. So this is actually, we believe, to be minimizing the impact around the community. So, but it doesn't help that, you know, your homes are close to the ITC corridor, and so we certainly need to listen to you folks. We appreciate that we're going to have an opportunity to have a conversation here, and also that we will have subsequent conversations to ensure that your concerns are fully addressed.
And I'm sorry, to add on to that, you know, it's a 24-inch line we're putting in. The line we're placing is a 16-inch. That's to meet the increased capacity and demand that's out in this area. The line we are getting rid of, that is 29 miles of pipeline. And so we really looked at how we can have the least amount of pipeline to both increase our network and increase the capacity of our system. So.
Thank you. I will get you one second. I just wanted to comment on one point. The resident said, what is the township attorney and supervisor and board doing about this? And I will say, in some capacity, our firm works for over 30 communities, and most communities would not host a meeting like this because it gives the impression to the residents that the community has involvement, has ability to say yes or no, or get involved with the design process. And as you dive deeper into this, you're going to realize that there's very little or absolutely no role for our township in this process. Federally regulated, state regulated, we're kept out of it. But we wanted to host this meeting because we're the best conduit from you to these folks up here. So I urge you to dig in before you level criticisms about what's being done by the board. Give some thought to what the board could actually do. And I'd be glad to talk to you after the meeting in the hallway about the oil situation. That was never an oil found or located there. There was a drill set up, and there was procedures that went on with that. Not an oil situation that was shut down by the township. But we'll talk about that. And someone here is next. Real quickly. Yes.
I just want to make sure if you want to blame somebody for having this meeting, you put the blame in the right spot, because I didn't, and Lynn Wilson was being very nice. She said that we asked for this meeting. Actually, no, we insisted on a meeting, and I'll tell you why. There were a lot of questions flying around, and for a project that's going to be in 6 or 7 months from now, I would have thought that plans would have been all laid out and everything would have been completed. And that was my assumption. So I thought, no, you know, there's got to be more information than what they're saying. So I said, look, just come and tell us everything you know, and everything you don't know, because this is all being taped. We're going to actually list all the questions. My intern's going to come in, and she's going to list every single question that has not been answered, and then we're going to email those questions back to them, and at the next meeting, we're going to have a list of those questions. So I don't want you thinking that if your question doesn't get answered tonight, it's going to be ignored. It's not going to be ignored. We are going to make sure that the questions get answered. So yes, I, with a strong support of the Board of Trustees, insisted that we have this meeting tonight, even though there's a lot of information they don't have. Because at the next meeting, our expectations are going to be much higher, and now we have a baseline. That was the logic. We have to do everything that we can as elected officials to make sure that we get the information so that you get the information. And by the way, my house is not that far from this pipe. So, you know, I've got a vested interest in this as well. So if it's preferential treatment, then you can accuse me of that too. And I'm glad that oil well was by your house. No, I'm kidding. That's not why you were involved. But we all have an interest because this is our community. Okay? I hope that helps. Okay. Now you can take the meeting.
Thank you for this opportunity. First of all, Rick, my name's Dave. I've been playing phone tag with you since Friday. You've returned the calls numerous times for me, and I've missed it. I'm sorry. It's directed to you people, but also very heavily to our legal and to our supervisor. Everybody's covered this as far as the trees and such. I live on Glen Oaks Drive. I'm right on the easement. I've watched enough football games to know that that easement is roughly 75 to 50 yards wide, okay? The west side of that easement is virtually treeless, very little vegetation over there. The easement itself is clear, with the exceptions of a couple water ditches, springs, whatever they are. My side of the easement, from 25 Mile Road all the way down my street, is covered with Glen Oaks Drive, oak trees, and mature pine trees. 20, 30, 35 years old. I'm talking very tall. I sit out on my patio with my wife. You can barely see power lines. You can barely see the structures. You eliminate those trees, I'm going to see them constantly. I'm going to hear the traffic noise from 25 Mile Road. The very backside of my house, the furthest most point on that brick to my engineering stake is 37 feet 3 inches. I measured it today. That's where the easement starts. That's where the easement starts. There's a knoll, and all these trees are on that knoll. My concern, 3 of my neighbors who are here, their concern, they eliminate those trees. You're going to sit out, I'm going to sit out on my patio, and I'm going to see crows sitting on the power lines. I'm going to see 100-foot plus towers. I'm going to hear the traffic on the road. It makes no sense. I thought I was going to come here and be able to get my blood pressure lowered down a little bit. I don't think it's going to happen. Why? You say you don't have the dimensions, you don't have the logistics on this thing yet. How come it's so far into this thing? We hear it from scuttlebutt. It scares the hell out of us. We don't want those trees removed. We don't want that knoll leveled down. I don't want a 2-foot in diameter gas line, possibly 38 feet from my back of my house. When there's a 70, 50, 75 yard easement there that's flat, that they don't have to do anything on other than run an obstacle course through possible power lines that are under the ground or other existing things that might be. Nobody's taking into consideration the noise. Nobody's taking into consideration when they cut that grass they call, but it's weeds, and they do it about every 10 days. I've been there for 8 years. They cut it there's nothing but a cloud of dust. There's nothing but a cloud of dust. Those Glen Oaks trees block that stuff. We can keep our windows open. That's why I'm concerned. I'm concerned, I'm angry, I'm upset, and I don't like how I'm getting the runaround from the city. I don't like how I get stories from Peter Lucido, our state senator. I talked to him a half an hour yesterday. He said it is directly responsible, or the city, or the township is responsible for this thing. They have a duty for our safety and our equity and house value. Cheapest house on that block is me, and it's over 400. There's a lot of houses that are way bigger than mine. And that's just the side of the easement. We've got a whole subdivision of 117, 115 houses in that subdivision. They're all going to be, my house lowers down in value, their house is going to lower down in value. Everyone, sooner or later. It's not going to be this year or next year. We've been there for 8 years. My wife is already talking about Should we put it up for sale before they start digging? The time to do this stuff and the time to get the answers are right now, not when they have a bulldozer in my backyard or close to it. Right now. And I can't believe you people don't have ballpark dimensions. Is it gonna be 38 feet from my house? Or is it gonna be 138 feet? If it's 138 feet, I still have that knoll. I can still sit out on my patio. I can still enjoy a beer or a coffee and not have to worry about it. I don't know, I guess I don't have a whole lot of question in all this stuff that I've said, but I got a lot of heartfelt feelings on it. And there's a lot of people in here that feel the same way. I know it. I know it. This is just this is a 3-day gather of people. 3 days, 4 days. 2 weeks ago, nobody knew anything, or I didn't know anything about this. I get a flyer in the mail. I get another flyer in the mail this morning. You know, this is just starting. Lucido says, hire a lawyer. Get a class action going right now. One of the council person that I was able to get a hold of, I spoke to him 4 times. He'd been very, very generous with his time. He says, well, I'm not sure we can, you know, the city's not going to want to get into it, possible lawsuits here, and I don't care. I want some representation. I want some people barking and biting. We expect more. We expect more from our legal, and we expect more from our supervisor and our council people. Why aren't they, I know why one of them isn't here, but where's the other ones? I mean, this really upsets. My blood pressure didn't drop 20 points, it just raised 15. Thank you very much for your time.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm kind of upset, so I might be like mumbling. But okay, my first question is I heard a rumor, because my backyard backs right up to the ITC property. So I heard a rumor that they were not gonna allow this on their property, so that they might put it on our personal property. So is that true? That's my first question. And my second question is we literally just closed on our house like a week ago, and we bought it because there was 30 feet of trees in our backyard. And I dreamed of my kids being out there. We have 5. We bought a swing set for them. And now I have to worry about an explosion if an accident happened and my babies are out there. So I need to know, there has to be some sort of law of how close this can be placed to our homes in case something happened. That's the bottom line. That's the most important thing. You can't have people living with their kids outside when something could explode and kill everyone, like no joke. So I want that answer. Otherwise, it has to be changed. They have to be pushed further back away from our homes. So the first question is that rumor true, that they might try to put it on our personal property? Because I have my backyard, a creek, and then like 30 feet of trees. And is that why they're saying our trees might get cut down? And the second is, how can you ensure, because obviously this is probably gonna happen, that our children and our families and we're gonna be safe in our own backyards in case something were to happen? Thank you.
Do you want to address the,
Yeah, I can address the rumor about where we would place the pipeline if ITC, and I'm just trying to reiterate the question, so if ITC didn't permit us to locate the pipe on that property, would the pipe get pushed off to your property? The simple answer to that question is that it's ITC's real property. So we are still working out that agreement with them for them to grant us the right to locate that pipe on their property. We would have to do the same thing with you as an owner of your own property.
Well,
Well, as far as whether or not that's an option, that's more of what we had indicated earlier on. The reason for the selection, the initial plan here to utilize that ITC corridor is because of its location, its existing use, its functionality as to locating utilities there, and essentially it puts the pipeline further away from the impact of the neighborhoods, the residential's further away from your home, further away from your backyards, not going down Shaner Road and where those populated areas are.
the township has recently responded to 5 or 6 one maybe today, condemnation suits from ITC that I think are only related to a slight expansion of the easement unrelated to your project. So the question I would have is, under your current plan, is consumers going to seek by way of condemnation to expand the reach on the corridor, or are you living with the real property that's already owned by ITC? Or if it's one of those we don't know, we'll put that for the next one.
Yeah, that would be again, because we're still working out and trying to finalize those details with the design and plan, we don't have an established footprint for where that pipe would be located.
So by way of just responding to the resident's question regarding personal property, expansion of the corridor requires you, because it's a taking of your constitutional rights you have with your property, to be served with the lawsuit, and in which normally the township is noticed as a party to. The township responds to those lawsuits on behalf of the residents and is doing that now in 5 or 6 cases. So consumers are saying no decision's been made on that. You should know always that if you're contacted regarding giving up any of your rights, that you should either seek a lawyer, or if you want to call the township, we'll give the best answer we can regarding that. And we are working with residents on that now. And who else would like to go? And there was a last pending question from the last speaker regarding safety of the pipeline. What can you tell us about that?
Well, like we said earlier, it's definitely being constructed to the federal and regulated code and requirements. I mean, the pipeline we're putting in, like I said, is very, very strong, and it has a lot of specifications. We protect the coating, we protect the pipe. We do a lot of things to make sure that that pipeline, wherever it sits, it's like we do for all of our pipelines. And the leak survey and all that, we do all those things to make sure that that pipeline is safe. So there's a lot of things that we do, that might have not been done in years past from the older pipelines. We need to replace these, and that's part of it, is we want to put in the best pipelines we can and the safest in the communities.
Yes, sir.
I'm not going to throw anything, just so you know. I guess my biggest concern is, in what I'm hearing and what we've seen in the past, basically you're going to do what you want anyway. Fair enough? You're going to put your pipeline where you want to put it, whether we like it or not, unless we sue you. That's the only recourse we have. Is that a fair statement? You're not going to change your plans because you're a corporation. You don't care about us, right? You're going to put it where you want it. It suits your needs, and I understand the future needs of Macomb County, but what we're saying here doesn't matter, whatever, because you're going to do it anyway. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Do you,
Wait, was there a question that you want to answer?
do we want,
Oh, are you next? I'm sorry. We'll get you next.
We can let this gentleman go.
okay.
But before that, is there something that you wish to respond to?
They can.
No.
I'm Walter Gilbert. I live at 53749 Dominic Court. and you have already approached me for an easement. You've offered money and consideration for that, along with my next door neighbor. Now, where you're putting the lines, somebody needs to look at that. It is definitely in the wrong spot. You're getting as close to the 132K power lines as you could get out there. You're not more than 20 feet off the ground. So somebody needs to walk out there and look. And also, my question is, in 2017, the Pipeline Safety Trust ranked Michigan among the worst states for a regulatory agency's website. No transparency. Thank you.
And Mr. Gilbert, good to put a face with, you and I have spoken on the phone.
Yes, sir.
Right. You're up, sir.
Bob Buddy, and Lake Point Woods area, and just to reiterate and ask a couple different things, I guess. But when we were talking about, someone brought up earlier about environmental issues and areas, and the impromptu meeting that we had as residents a couple days ago, someone brought up about a wetland area, which isn't technically a wetland area. They were saying there's an area where there's maybe a quarter mile of water every spring. There are 200 to 300 ducks that come in and live and migrate there for that time. And like I said, it's not an official wetland area from what we know. So, you know, talking with the residents and looking at some information from, you know, just talking with the residents, you might be able to find out more of that. And as you say, you're worried about the environment and can do something about that. I think it was somewhat answered that you said 29 mile that we're replacing. Just, I was wondering where exactly the pipeline we're replacing is at. And, you know, like someone said, can we go in that same area? If it's 29 mile, that seems a little further out where maybe not as much impact for, you know, for people and the environment. And also I'm wondering, don't know if I can get this or not, but just looking at what other viable solutions that you were looking at actually for, you know, for this. And then also, as I was talking with Kristen earlier, I brought up about, you know, just the safety of people. And I know Jeff hit on a little bit, but, you know, some real good material. I wonder if we could get some more specifics on how long this pipeline is supposed to last. I mean, the initial stuff, we're talking 50, 60 years. There's a number of issues before there's been explosions and this and that. So if we can get more technical specifications and longevity on this would be helpful. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I think there we do have some questions that we can address tonight. Thank you for your comments. One of the questions that we captured just now is where is the existing pipeline and why can't we use that area? And thinking about it being a 29-mile stretch and we're shortening that to 17.
I think there's a slide, actually. I think it's slide 2.
Back
If you want to
up
back
one
up a little
from
bit
there.
on that.
There we go.
There we go. Perfect. Okay, so you can see from the map, the green lines that are up there, one to the north there, that's lateral 600. That is, actually, a lot of that is in Shelby Township, as well as the one, our 3100 pipeline that is in green there, going through Oakland County. If you add those together, that is the miles that we spoke about, the 29 miles. And basically, we did an assessment of those pipelines from an engineering perspective to see what it would cost to replace those pipelines. It was double the cost of this project. It is also running very close to people's backyards and front yards, and in a very congested area. And so based upon that engineering evaluation, as well as the impacts to those homeowners in that particular area, we determined that we tried to look for routes that were less evasive. And basically, we came up with the various different pipelines that you see here, the new pipelines in purple, and of which we're speaking about the Macomb Corridor piece today.
Okay. Do we have any more information tonight about how long pipelines last, and maybe?
I think we need to get back with them on that. You know, we'll
Okay.
provide that data.
The
when-
data,
Yeah.
the engineering data.
Yeah, we don't have it right now, and I don't want to, I don't want to throw a number out there. I have one in my head, but I don't want to, I want to make sure we're
Okay.
given the right timeline for that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. The first one is a question we heard right at the beginning, and it was asked, is this a done deal? Well, that was kind of like a wishy-washy answer. You said that it's negotiation with the utility company. Is this a done deal where it's going through no matter what? We're not asking about the negotiation and what you guys have agreed upon, but is this happening for sure? Okay, first question. Second, there's 52 million, I think it said, that is going into this project. Can't they take and offset this pipeline? Does it have to be straight? If it's going to infringe on some people's trees and backyards and privacy, can't they kind of make it not straight? Go in a different direction? They've got a lot of money going into this project. That can't be that big of an expense. That would be a negotiation where it could possibly be okay with some people. And the third thing is, 3 times I have heard one of you say that it is going to be better than before we started when you're done. Better for who? I think that depends on the perspective of who's looking. You say it's going to be better. Well, all these people think it's going to be better. Better because this gas line is closer to their home and their trees are gone. I think it's a perspective question. And it kind of pisses me off when I hear somebody say, oh, you're going to have it better. We wouldn't be sitting here if we really believed it was going to be better. Thank you.
I can address as far as is this project a done deal? I think it's important to understand that we have evaluated this project as far as the 3,100 retirement of the two pipelines for some time now, and we spent quite a bit of time engineering, system planning, and looking at what we felt we could do for the community to minimize the impacts to the community and to provide routes that made the most sense. And also, we have reduced the amount of miles of pipe that we do have to put into the ground so that we are minimizing the impacts to the community as best we can. I do appreciate the fact that it's based upon, well, yeah, it's better for one area, but another area, obviously, you guys this is in your backyard. So I think it's something that we felt we spent quite a bit of time in evaluating, trying to mitigate the impacts to the community as best we can by reducing the amount of pipe that we had to replace and to minimize the community impacts. So I think it's, and then the vegetation, I know with the trees, it is a very emotional concern. I completely understand that. And I think that our team is doing a very nice job. We have professionals that have been hired to evaluate the trees and to evaluate what can be done. And I know Stephen in real estate is doing a really nice job with professionals to develop that plan that we are working with ITC on. So we do hear you. We understand your concerns. It is your homes. And so we want to do what's right and to evaluate and listen to your concerns today. And we definitely will come back with discussions in an open house forum to discuss our detailed designs with you and to address all of your concerns.
Okay, thank you. And when I looked back, I just saw our
Rob.
township.
Excuse me, Rob, I'm sorry.
nope,
I
better
also
yet.
just wanted to add on to what Kristen had been saying about whether or not it's a done deal. I would say in respect to the decision to modernize the network here in South Oakland and Macomb, the decision to just essentially looking at our existing facilities and the need to modernize our facilities to supply our customers with their needs for natural gas supply. I would say that's a done deal. But as far as the response with respect to that we're still working out those details with ITC, we don't have that finalized yet. This is our preferred route, and we're working closely with them in that regard. So.
Thank you. And when I got up earlier, I didn't recognize our township engineer who was sitting behind Brad Bates, Carol Thurber. Thank you for being here. The next person ready to speak, you've spoken. We'll call you again. I just want to make sure everyone goes ahead of time. Yes, sir. And then you'll be next, sir.
Hi.
Hi.
So a lot of the questions that we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks have been asked. Some of them have been answered. I'll reiterate for the fourth time. I appreciate you adding to the back end of that question and saying, yes, it's going to happen. Hopefully, you're in a situation where you're trying to figure out well, I know you're in a situation where you're trying to figure out what is the least troublesome path to go through, and trouble being money. Part of the problem that we want to make for you, create, is one that will allow you to decide to move it further from our homes. You talked earlier about the one accident that you've had in Michigan. You had another accident on 26 Mile in Ira Township last year. Bad enough that you built a berm around it. Let me read to you a statistic. PHMSA, you know what that acronym stands for. Statistics show that the number of gas pipeline incidents deemed significant, and significant is defined as involving deaths, injuries requiring hospitalization, significant property damage, or significant amounts of spillage, have ranged between 233 and 336 incidents per year since 1997, including 307 significant incidents last year. That's not trees. They're hugely important. They're in my backyard. I live in Glen Oaks. I don't want to look at your at ITC's high tension wires, and I know you don't want me to, but we have to figure out a path where we can come up with some sort of compromise where you're not creating a horrible solution. Is Shaner better? Probably not, but it doesn't mean that it makes life good for us if you put it in our backyards. You never answered the question on condemnation. I'd like that answered. Because that means, as I measured mine, I'm 46 feet from my house to the property line. The easement comes back 15 feet from there. It's the reason we don't have a pool. I have 3 kids. We have friends over. My next door neighbors have pools and they have young kids. You've all seen the Free Press article in the footage. I don't want you to undermine what happened in Orion Township. That crater was 56 feet wide minimum. 56-foot wide crater. The fireball was seen in Detroit. And 90 minutes is not fast to extinguish it. When my house and my neighbor's house are 50 feet away. So yeah, having the trees cut down will suck. Excuse my language. But if you have another accident, like you did in Orion Township, thank God it was in the middle of the woods. In the ITC corridor between 23 and 25 mile, you're going to kill people under the current plan as we've heard it. Now, forgive me, we're dealing with rumors. That's your fault. As you've said plenty of times tonight, this isn't your first rodeo. You're acting like it. Why are we hearing about this now? Why is it rumor? This can't be fun for you folks. I know it's not fun. Forgive me, I sat there a long time before I decided to come up here so I wouldn't get upset. A couple of other questions. As I said, a lot of them have been answered. I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Jeff.
Jeff, you've gone to great lengths to make sure that we understand the work you guys have done to avoid putting these pipelines in dangerous places. In fact, you said earlier tonight you like to keep these things 100 feet from properties as you plan these out. Remember, 36 feet, 46 feet. Unless you condemn, then it's less. You mentioned that, all of you have mentioned at one point or other, except you like to leave it better. Let me show you something. This is what it looks like now. Okay? Those are the trees in question. You guys all know this, right? I want to know how you're going to leave that better if they're clear cut. So I want an answer to that question. Township responsibility. Rick, thank you for taking the time to talk to me for the last couple of weeks. Rob just met you tonight. I don't know the law, but you have a responsibility. We elect you and the board, and they hire you. It's your responsibility to do what's right for the township, or go to your grave trying. I'd like to get ITC in here for the same kind of discussion, by the way. You talked about the cost doubling. Don't care. Deal with the rate board. Do it better next time than you did this year. You mentioned that you use good quality steel. Polyethylene, what was the other material?
The steel pipe house.
What was in Orion Township when it exploded?
It was steel.
46 feet from my kids. Let's figure out an alternative that works for everybody. That's, I think, what most people here would be happy with. I don't want it 75 feet from my house, but that's better than 46 feet or 50 feet. Okay, so I'll apologize again for getting upset. Man, I gave it an hour and a half. But just because I'm up here and my Irish is up doesn't mean that that isn't what's going on in everybody else behind me's brain. This is with 5 days notice, 3 days notice. Some of these people found out about this morning, as you heard. And this will impact more than just the folks that are upset now on the easement, on the right-of-way. Because everybody who lives in those subdivisions, when those trees come down, when that pipeline goes in, it's not going to be Glen Oaks or Tuscany Grove or Lake of the Woods. It's going to be that subdivision next to the high-tension wires. So I would like an answer on condemnation. You answered the pipeline piece. I do want ITC. If they're you've pointed at ITC quite a bit. I don't care if the cost is double, $104 million. You know, have the folks who work on the rates work on that. I'll pay extra. We all will. We don't know how it goes anyway. And please, when we have this conversation again, and you're talking about the importance of safety for your crew, understand how that feels to us, because we're talking about the safety of our family. It might be 3 weeks of building. It's going to be 15, 20 years for us. So, thank you.
address the- okay.
Sure. I wanted to answer or address as best I can about the eminent domain question that you have. As a public utility, Consumers does have the authority as to eminent domain. Essentially what that is that we have the ability, if it's deemed necessary, to be able to put in that utility, whether it's an electric line or a gas line to serve the public need, then we would actually be able to have that authority to take that property right, that specific property right. Now, in the context of this project itself, we haven't come to you. Mr. Gilbert actually came up and mentioned that we've had a field agent or a Consumers agent approach him with respect to a voluntary request to obtain an easement from him, and along with his neighbor, because part of the current proposed design actually is locating that pipeline across his property. The current design as we have it is located on the ITC corridor itself. So it's essentially because the ITC corridor backs up to or is contiguous to your property, that's why you're here. Because our design is there, it's located right by you. But we're not seeking any private property rights from you. Okay, so that's where the eminent domain wouldn't come into play in that context. Okay. I also wanted to just also address, you showed the picture of the trees. I saw that, I see that, and that's also part of this planning, this pre-planning that we're trying to work with ITC. It's their property. The trees are currently on their corridor. And so part of our plan is to not just simply look at clearing everything and putting in a pipe and leaving it there. There's also part of the construction of every project that we have is the follow-up, it's the restoration. So that's also something that's part of the detail that goes into the pre-planning. And once we start solidifying those designs, Lynn mentioned that we're planning on having that open house, that open forum where we'll have those specific areas to be able to address those specific functions, those specific aspects of the construction, and restoration will be part of that as well.
And just a second plug for Kim is there in the back doorway in the kind of pink shirt. And she and Stephen will be at the ledge just outside that door. If you'd like to connect with them after the meeting to talk more specifically about your property as it's adjacent to the corridor.
Yep. Mr. Gilbert, will you come up here then, please?
All right, just for clarification, you're going to restore it. What are you allowed to plant over that pipeline? Thank you.
So as part of that negotiation, that's a one-on-one negotiation that we have with you with respect to that particular agreement on your property. So when you look at that agreement, we can discuss that as far as the details with respect to the vegetation that's allowed within the easement area. There's also the additional workspace that we may need to do, but I can address those concerns with you individually after the meeting.
Well, I know what I'm allowed.
Okay.
Okay, and then I just a couple quick comments, and then we'll go back to the audience. The question was, why isn't ITC here? ITC is here. All right, they have a representative in the audience, so things that you are being said to this group here is going directly to ITC. Next, just keep in mind too that Mr. Stathakis' intern is transcribing all these questions so that we have a record of every point you've raised tonight, not only the questions, but the points you've made with respect to how this should look, so there's a record of it. And with all due respect to the utility here, the comment was made that if we have to expand our easements, we have the right to take your property. The township has litigated that issue before and been successful, and that our position has been you can only expand your right by proving that it's by necessity. you have to prove to the court, you have the burden to prove to the court that it's necessary that you expand your request to move the easement wider as opposed to doing something else that doesn't affect the homeowners. Those other ITC cases we have now, we're filing responsive pleadings on behalf of the township, which includes the residents, and we'll continue to make that point on behalf of the residents. So if this comes to condemnation, the township would most likely be a party, and we would aggressively question whether or not easements have to be expanded as opposed to moving the pipeline somewhere away from the residents. So those 3 points, and who's next? I know I'm not going to forget you, I promise. And you haven't spoken yet, right?
Thank you for the opportunity. This is just an if question, which you might say you can't answer. If you're on the furthest east and you're still on ITC's property and they agree to that, and you're running the pipeline on the farthest east that you can possibly go, apologize, I should have looked this up before. How far do you have to cut the trees down into the easement if you are as far as east as you can possibly go on the ITC property line?
And is the ball in my court, or is that a?
Is that something we can speak?
Again, I mean, as far as from a design perspective, we have been looking at our design to see if we can mitigate as far as the tree clearing. We anticipated this concern, and we are, from a design perspective, looking at what we can do to mitigate those, the trees associated with it, as well as what Stephen had mentioned was the restoration plan and ensuring that ITC is agreeable to that restoration plan before we could present that to you.
Clearly, it'll be topic number 1 the next time we're here. Yes, sir, and then back down to you'll be next, ma'am, and then the gentleman that's been patient there.
Boy, I'm sure don't want to be you guys. Somebody last September, August came out there behind the property. I live right on the property line too. Put orange ribbons in the grass, which I think would solve your problem with 80% of us in here, because it was just west of the tree line or just enough in there. Somebody went and did it. Some of the ribbons are still there, but the mower guy cut them down. So we was wondering if that's where the pipeline went, 80% of us in here would be happy. But I'm sure you know that. But at least somebody has looked into it evidently because they put the ribbons there. My question is, ITC is privately owned property by Edison or somebody. So I was saying, if you were going to put your pipe down there, it's going to cost you bucks. It's going to cost you bucks to put down Shaner Road. It's going to it's cost you less money to put only 17 miles of pipe in than 29 miles of pipe in. I understand all that, and that's good stewardship. None of us want the pipe there, but progress changes things. You have to put up with things, and that could be it. It seems like your major concern here is the trees. So you guys said your pipes last about 40 years. That's why you want to replace them. So how many billions of dollars did you guys make of gas going through them pipes? And how many billions of dollars more are you going to make from the gas going through the pipes you're going to put in our backyards? Only reason why I can think of why you guys want to come down the free easement rather than pay for the ITC property is the good old bucks. We can steal the buck from the poor neighborhood people, ruin their property values, make them take down their trees and everything else, because I'm going to make my billions of bucks. I got to make the stockholders happy. I got to make as much money for them as possible. And that's the only reason why the trees are even an issue, because that's an easement and that's free. And you guys want to take all your bucks and screw the homeowner and move on. So my question is that the reason?
I think one thing we could address is Consumers Energy's relationship to ITC. In terms of our businesses? Like
I'm
that
quite
we're
sure.
not
Yeah, I'm
subsidiaries?
help me out. I was a little bit, as far as, the one question that you asked about was the selling of natural gas. As a regulated utility, we actually don't earn on the gas that we sell to the customers. That is actually a pass-through as far as what we buy the gas for and deliver it to the customer. That is what you pay. So from a earnings perspective, you were concerned about us selling more gas. That's actually a pass-through, so that doesn't go to our shareholders. As far as the subsidiary, okay, so actually, Consumers Energy is a regulated public utility. We do have common stock and stockholders, but we are not a subsidiary of Detroit Edison. That is a separate company. And then ITC itself, ITC Transmission, they are a separate company. I wasn't sure if that was what your concern was associated with the affiliation.
Also on the property, when you've seen the stakes out there, the stakes were, the first part in engineering anything is you got to look at the topography. So we had companies out there surveying the area to give us, where are those trees, where are those underground utilities, where are those drains and sewers and things like that. And that's part of the overall picture, gathering all that data, then figuring out what you need to do from that standpoint. So we've been gathering a lot of data, and that's why you see some of those stakes out there.
One of the things too that I heard in that comment that I think we might be able to address is, and I've heard it kind of as a theme in some other comments, is that that the only thing we're looking at is cost when we're looking at this design. And I think you've spoken about some of the other features, and certainly if we mention worker safety, that is not at the exclusion of homeowner safety, public safety as well. And do you want to comment maybe on some, like the complexities of what goes into some, not just what goes into some of the design considerations?
There's a lot of, there's obviously there's route and location of that utility, but part of it is just kind of looking at your topography and deciding out where's the best route to go. It's not always about cost. We may take some routes that may be very difficult, and it's because we're trying to get from point A to point B, and we have to spend a significant amount of money to get to those. When we have those issues, when we run into problems with underground utilities and things like that. So we're not always picking the cheapest route. We're not, by no means, because there is a lot of different routes that we could go. The problem is what's in our way when we run into it. And in this day and age, especially in Macomb County and Oakland County too, is the amount of utilities that are underground today, and the underground communication lines and the electric lines. There's just so much, and we had to look really detailed. Whenever you do a topographical survey and you gather data from utility companies and other municipalities, there's so much in the ground and so much that goes into the planning of figuring out where you could actually go. And then you have to have those utility discussions, and it works the same way with if the city they want to do a storm or a water project or a road reconstruction project. They have to work with us, and our pipelines to determine where the best place to go is. And so we go through an evaluation process, and sometimes it's not the best route. We do spend that extra money to go on the route that's safest for that pipeline and the people around it.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I also live on Glen Oaks. I have a question for each one of you up there. Would you want this pipeline in your backyard? Yes or no?
Yeah. No, I'm serious. I did live in Macomb Township, and the pipeline wasn't right there, but it was there's another pipeline in the easement. But I know, I do feel safe, and I see all the inspections and the federal requirements associated with it. I do feel comfortable.
We're not getting into that dialogue.
Sir. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So the question was related to our being comfortable to have this pipeline in our backyard. And I can appreciate that, certainly. In these homes, I mean, ITC corridor is a utility corridor with high-powered lines. And I think it's important that we look at utilities as something that's needed for the community, from an economic perspective, in order for us to grow. And from an answer, I guess I would be, as far as you're asking me personally, yes. So I've worked with pipelines for many years, and I'm very comfortable with the way we construct and the way we maintain our pipelines. So yes, I wouldn't have an issue with the pipeline. Now, I understand your concerns and having this pipeline in your backyard. So it's certainly, we would like to address your concerns and certainly add to the discussion here and when we come back to meet with you again.
Yeah, I live in a very urbanized area, and I do have a gas pipeline running in front of my house, in front of my sidewalk, and I don't have concerns about it.
Yes. The safety issue, the modern convenience of the gas and the electricity coming to my home. Yeah, I would.
I would as well. We have a construction manager that is trying to build a team that is putting together inspectors. The amount of inspection that goes into all the welds that are done with the steel and the pipe and the coatings we order now is extremely durable. Yes, I would.
Okay, sir, yes, you're next, and then the veteran right there. So, to you second.
Just a follow-up to the question you asked. Is there a law, or do you have a rule or regulation for distance? This explosion in Orient Township was quite a distance from anybody that lived near it.
Use the microphone, please.
Sure. What is it? Is there a law, or do you have a regulation for these pipelines in terms of distance from human beings, families? That's it.
Yeah, and that's something we'll have to follow up with you to get the exact.
I know the answer, but I want to make sure I would look it up.
Yes.
Look it up.
Yeah, we don't
Make
want to spin a
Well,
number out there.
Well,
But it's a lot closer than you would be surprised how close it. Yeah, it's a lot closer than you think. So I don't want to, so I think it's important for us to make sure that we've got the correct number for you. But we will we'll certainly address that. And we appreciate the fact that we'll have all of these documented and ensure that we respond quickly to your concerns.
Yes, sir. No. You don't.
Why don't want me to ask a question?
Oh, there. Okay, then we'll ask somebody else. You've been, this gentleman, 1 second. This gentleman hasn't been up yet.
Thank you. Three questions. One, I know this is probably minor, but the first question that came out was, how does it affect our property value? Obviously, it's going to go down. How is it going to affect our homeowners' insurance? Do you have any evidence of it going up because of the pipes line? Two, I just found out about this on a flyer yesterday night, so less than 24 hours. I'd like to know a little more in advance for the next meeting, when we're going to have it, and more notification of less than 24 hours. And I'm also, and third, I'm a little confused on, you're up there not answering the questions, yet you're saying you're starting this in February. If you don't have these answers now, which I don't believe, how can you be doing this, starting this in February? Thank you.
Is that you again?
I can, yeah, so associated with the we've been just working on this project for some time, and I think the concerns associated with it is that we need to ensure that we have alignment with ITC, and that what we're presenting to ITC is they can accept the design that we're proposing. And so we need to ensure that we've established that with them first, before we can present that to you. It's the same thing with the vegetation plan. We need to make sure that they are comfortable with the designs. It is their property.
I don't know anything about homeowners insurance. Does anybody have any?
Well, I'd like to answer that too. And as far as the property values question, that's come up many times, and then also the insurance, the property insurance, is that each one of you is an individual property owner. So those discussions that we would have with you as our real estate agents. That's why we have the contact list. We are planning on coming out and reaching out to you and having those one-on-one conversations with you to answer those unique questions specifically for your parcels.
And then as far as the public notice question, I can say as the stakeholder engagement manager for this project that we're happy to be here at the township tonight working through their system. We can expect that our meeting will be not in this room. It will be in an open house format, and we will be doing the public notice through an established process that will include postcard notices directly to the homeowners on the corridor, as well as public notices in the newspaper.
And that would include notice to the township then? Because what I'm thinking is, well, just as a backup, those folks that are here that want to be put on a list, we will send you, I presume everyone has email. If you leave your name and your email address with I'm going to set this out there after I call up the next speaker. We'll make sure we give you notice right away so you know when the next meeting is. Did I nod to somebody that they were next and I didn't remember? It was you, wasn't it, Mr. Kowalski? And then, yes, go ahead. Yes.
First, I want to note to Mr. Stathakis and Mr. Huth, Mr. Stathakis, I have supported you since you've been our supervisor, and I think you do a good job. I was not here to point fingers at anybody. I want something done, and I think you guys should be a part of it, okay? But I'm going to be optimistic. I'm hoping that all the information you took back and the thought about maybe putting a team together with your team to come up with solutions using your engineering background and using what will make the people feel a little bit better is going to happen. But let's just look at the worst case scenario, and I hope I'm wrong. If it stays as it is today, and you guys stay with that decision, and we have this gas line that's anywhere from 35 feet to 60 feet from our homes, the question I want answered is, will Consumers Energy post bonds to make sure if anything happens, there are bonds in place to cover any kind of major catastrophe that any of these people may suffer? Thank you again for your time.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Just want to make a statement as a longtime insurance agent.
Oh, wait, we make it up here because the problem is it's being taped and.
I don't talk very loud. Just a statement about the insurance. It will not affect the insurance.
They want your microphone.
It's just not a question. There's never an underwriting question regarding proximity to a gas line, so it will not affect insurance prices or premiums.
Okay. All right, are there any other questions? The yellow pad is out there. Someone from Consumers is here. I'll also take your name, but the township will do it too and follow up if you leave contact information. Has everybody spoken that has wanted to speak? Is there any final comments that you folks would like to say before we adjourn the meeting? Oh, Mr. Stathakis.
Okay. Okay, first of all, I heard some dates being thrown around, February, January, as to when the project might start. Then I heard something about spring. What I'd like to know is, when might the shovel hit the ground?
Do we have to wait till you sit down?
No, wait, yes, you do actually. I'm going to follow the rules.
Okay.
And the second thing is, you talked about a meeting not in this room. We're very kind of conditioned to having transparency and everybody in one room. Might it be possible to negotiate maybe the next meeting in this room? Because you can do anything you want with these people. You'll have their email addresses, you'll have a lot of information about them, but it would make it easier for my board of trustees and all of us to actually be part of these meetings, because some people out here, I think, did point out, and I think rightly so, that we do need to be involved as much as we can be involved. And I think if the meetings take part one-on-one, it's going to make it very difficult for us knowing what's going on. That would be my second question, and now I have to sit down.
With regard to the room, we can definitely negotiate location. We don't want to use this room because we do want to have an open house format, so we need some open floor space. But I'm sure amidst your facilities, we can work something out. And then as far as a project schedule,
So for the project schedule, obviously we're in the process of design and discussions with ITC. So really those are what we're working on right now. And certainly from a construction perspective, as far as when we would actually have all of our permits, our environmental permits and our construction permits, those all need to be put in place before any shovel is in the ground. So we definitely need to ensure we have all of those taken care of before we start. And I would suspect most likely in the spring before we would even start anything. As far as from a construction perspective. The clearing is, when we say clearing, when we're looking at the vegetation plan, that is something that we still need to evaluate, and certainly we are listening to you folks as far as your concerns associated with your trees. And so that is something that we need to work with the ITC and ensuring that vegetation plan has been approved. And then we would be looking at the timing associated with that will depend upon the final approval from ITC.
Okay, thank you. And these folks out here, as well as the rest of the folks in Shelby Township, just purchased this week the Boys and Girls Club on 21 Mile Road. It has a large gymnasium, big open space, and it may be a good spot to conduct your next meeting. Encourage everybody to sign up with consumers right in the back left there. So, yes? I have something to say. I guess there was this left back there.
Yeah.
We have a sign-in sheet. If we sign on that, give it to you, or do you want to sign separately? I think if you put it on his legal pad, he'll get more signatures. Okay. All right, we'll take both. All right, so encourage everybody to please leave your name and email address so we let you know when the next meeting is. Thank you for showing up. Yes, ma'am?
I had just one question.
Okay, I'll run over there so we can keep it moving and just hand you the mic.
Thank you. Thank you for taking our questions this evening. We were one of the ones that a representative from consumers came to our home and said they wanted 50 feet of our property. And of course, he came back 2 or 3 times after that. The last time he came, he asked for the title of our property, how it was laid out, and he wanted to sign the papers. He told us how much it was going to be that we would get for that property. And if we didn't sign, they would take us to court. And also to our neighbors next door were told the same thing. And that the trees were going to be cleared from 23 Mile up to 26 Mile starting in January. Now, you said that nothing's been decided yet, but according to your rep that came to our home, it has been. So why did he want us to sign the papers, give us so much money for that property, and our neighbor the same way and tell us that if we didn't, they would see us in court, and the trees were going to be leveled. So you can answer that for me. I appreciate it.
Hold on. I want to get this. I know I'm not supposed to say a whole lot because of legal stuff, but this one really is getting under my skin. And let me just tell you what's going on here. And Ms. Wilson, you can actually talk about this too. We were promised about a month ago that nothing would be talked about to any of you until we had the plans. We were going to be part of this in terms of communication. That's the promise we got. And Ms. Wilson, I'm not going to pick on you because I know you're kind of cleaning up a big mess here. But I got very upset when I heard about you, and there was somebody else in here that told me about something like that too. So the promise, a consumer energy promise, was not upheld. And I got very upset. I got very angry. And I made a lot of phone calls. And I went through a lot of red tape, and I was not getting answers. And I finally called the CEO of Consumers Energy. And I said, I am sick of this red tape. I want some answers, and I want some answers now. And that's when Ms. Wilson got involved. And she said, okay, we are sorry. These people should not have contacted you. And there were some other people too. And I said, I don't want apologies. I want a meeting. I want a meeting now. I want it next week. I want it before Thanksgiving. I don't care what we have to do. We are going to have a meeting, but we don't have all the answers. I don't care. We're going to have a meeting, and we're going to get some baseline answers. And we're going to ask you questions, and you're going to answer the questions you can answer, and the ones you can't, then that's going to be your problem. But you're coming back a second time to answer all the questions that you do not answer. So that is why we're having a meeting tonight. And that is what makes me very upset. And some other people in the audience also got those threats. And I know that happened because a lot of people contacted me. So we are not going to be intimidated. We are going to get answers. I don't know how much we can do, but we've got Rob Huth, and we're going to do what we can do to represent you. So I want you to know, and I'm sorry, Rob, I'm not supposed to be up here talking, but there's a lot more going on than you know. And we are going to do the very best that we can do. And it's not just me, it's our Board of Trustees. We have 7 very upset Board of Trustees, very upset, because promises were not kept. And I've got my director, my DPW director, Dave Miller, who got some of these promises about not saying anything to anybody until the plan was complete. Well, you can see tonight, the plan is not even nearly complete, not even near that point. So for something to actually be started in January, I don't see it happening. I don't see this happening until 2021. Obviously, I'm wrong. It's going to happen before then if it happens. But I want to assure you that's not just me. It is the entire Board of Trustees working behind the scenes. And I wish I could tell you more, but it's not all fun and games, okay? And I want you to know that. So I'm sorry if you came here tonight and your expectations were not met. I kind of knew they wouldn't be, but you are helping me. You are helping our Board of Trustees out and our attorney by being here tonight, and all of them too, because they need to know your expectations. They need to exceed them, and I know they're not being met. But without this meeting tonight, I have no baseline. I don't even know what questions to ask. We have a good idea, but now that we've got this on tape, we have all your questions. And you can depend on our Board of Trustees to make sure that everything possible we can do, we're going to do to make sure your questions get answered. Ma'am, I am so sorry about what happened to you. I am so sorry. And there are some other people, I don't know their faces. I know it's happened to them too. I am so sorry. But we represent you, and we are going to do everything that we can do. I can't make any promises because like a lot of things that happen in Shelby Township and other townships and cities, it's all new ground. But we're going to do what we can do, and we're going to fight for you, okay? And I know you, all of you, are going to work with us as much as possible, and I do appreciate it. I appreciate you, Ms. Lynn Wilson, getting involved because there was so much red tape. She finally called me Friday at 5:05. We were on the phone for an hour last Friday. And I said, I don't care what you have to do. We are having a meeting. And she called me Monday morning, got everybody together and said, okay, we're going to have the meeting. And so without the support of my Board of Trustees, we wouldn't have gotten that done. So anyway, that's it. I wasn't going to say all that, but when I heard that, it really, it tears my heart, makes me angry. We are, but I don't want to set artificial expectations. I can't stand up here and say, people who say, well, sue them or do a civil lawsuit.
Right.
That's emotional talk. We have to sit down, we've got to figure out what we're going to do, and whatever it is, we've got to make it meaningful. So we're going to do what's meaningful, and Rob, I'm going to give it back to you. And I feel better.
Okay, and thank you. And then we're going to close on their comment regarding your question. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, ma'am. I have no reason to doubt you that a comment like that was made. I was not there personally, but I can assure you that consumers does not threaten. We are there to request a notification, to request a negotiation with you with respect to proposed designs and plans regarding a negotiation of rights with respect to property rights. For your property itself, it's an easement, but it's an individual negotiation. And I'd be more than happy to talk to you after the meeting and get more specifics from you regarding that discussion.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. And the yellow pad that the township has put out, they're offering as a notification option. Kim and Stephen will be out with a consumer's energy spreadsheet if you'd like to make a specific appointment with them to talk about your property individually. And we thank you for your time this evening, and we look forward to seeing you again.